Good day to you, partner. I'm Guy, and I can already tell that I'll be your best friend in this forsaken camp.
Hey guys, Wheat Solo here, aka the Skeleton King. We are continuing our trip back to Uber Tristram, something I said I would never do since Season 3. Not even Season 3, Season 2 Beta I think was the last time I did Uber Tristram. Because, you know, it largely hasn't changed. I understand going in once is different, and them not regenning is different. But honestly, in my opinion, for a necromancer, it actually makes it easier. Now, yes, if you die, you don't get another chance. Well, guess what? There's these retards who play hardcore, where that's the entire game experience for them. So there you go. Anyways, we're doing the same gear. Basically, I did change the amulet. The reason why is the third eye had a poison facet in it, and I didn't want any extra poison, pierce, or mastery. I'm only going to have 12% mastery. That's going to be from the train gloves. I did put a dwarf star on, and I probably shouldn't have done that, but I kind of forgot I wasn't wearing a ring. You know, it's kind of one of those bad habits where I'm like, oh, I have a ring slot open. Here, I'll put a dwarf star on. And like, I probably should have had a dwarf star on for the last video. So technically this one's going to be a little tankier than the other two purely summon-based builds. Now, so what is this build? Well, it's Desecrate Revives, which means it's still a summon build. Kind of. It's actually Desecrate. It just happens to run Revives because Revives are good, especially budget. One of the interesting things is you'll notice I freaked out at the beginning and I stopped casting Desecrate because one of the common mistakes I would make, I think it was when I was doing budget Ubers, is I would kill Council quicker with Desecrate, and then I'd go, oh shit, I forgot again, because you'd have all these corpses and you couldn't click them as easily. But one of the great changes they made to this game is that the Desecrate pool corpses actually despawn after 10 seconds. That's actually largely a buff for Necromancers, although there are some situations where it makes it worse. So just like the last build, we're going to be prioritizing Council safety, and I think for the most part, I'm a little too... I prioritize their safety a little much. But right here, this is the dream scenario, okay? This is literally the dream. Bale is in or behind a house, and then us are on the other side. So not only can our council members cast Hydras by him, but I can also cast Desecrate. Now, the one thing I should do differently is I have really good gear, right? And I don't think you could... Well, you could probably want to run a Whiz Spike. We'll get to why you wouldn't later. But Whiz Spike helps you regen mana. My FCR is really fast, so I guess it kind of balances out and I go through my mana pool pretty quickly. But you really want to put a lower resist up on him. The lower resist isn't only going to help your Desecrate do more damage, but it's going to help your council members do more damage, and it's just going to help you conserve some mana. Because honestly, one of the biggest problems with this fight isn't your health as a Necromancer, it's actually going to be making sure you don't run out of mana. And in fact, many players, once they changed it to the only one entrance per talisman, one of the main issues I see them face is they run out of mana. Now, what can you do? Well, if the fight's close to over, you can just wait for your mana pool to fill up. Or if it's like really early on in the season and you can't afford it, then yeah, you can always do that. Just run off to a corner and wait. And then yes, it's going to be really slow because you're going to run out of mana quickly again. But anyways, Desecrate Bale goes incredibly well. He is the easiest Uber, and just... It's basically a little slower than the Clay Golem Revive kill, in my opinion, but it's so safe, it's ridiculous. On Mephisto, I'm going to keep most of my council members alive by the end of it, and I'm going to go into what you should do with Mercs, because it's largely the same thing. I think in general, pulling him down here is a bad idea. What I should have done is basically once I pulled Mephisto all the way down here, I probably should have switched to Diablo, or at least switched to Diablo long enough to pull him up to the north. Because I think fighting down in this corner isn't that great, but I can't really go to the houses too much because Diablo's right there. But honestly, when I fight Diablo, I'm going to come back to this point, and you'll see what I mean while maybe it's not the biggest deal in the world. So what merc should you run? Well, you should run an Act 3 merc for this fight budget, especially if you're going Desecrate Revives. Act 1 has some benefits, especially once you can get Fanaticism and you're a summoner. And then I guess you could still run Meditation just for Ubers, so you'd never run out of mana. Vigor's always good as well for you or for your summons for this fight, trust me. You're probably not going to have a 0 CD Blood Warp anytime soon. But the reason why Act 3 is so great is, for one, he's ranged. Emilio and Gorm are incredible, incredible creatures, and I love them dearly, but unfortunately they are going to get themselves killed, even with in-game gear. And until you get in-game gear, there's like no way to keep them alive. Even spamming jubes on them is very inconsistent, even with life tap up. I've seen them live longer than they should, but it's just not worth it, trust me. So you get your Act 3 Merc, and you get the benefit of having either Prayer or you get Cleansing. Now, which one is better? It's Prayer, but I do think there's an argument for Cleansing, and why? I think it makes Bale actually a little more consistent, because Lore Resist can totally fuck you up. By the way, that sucked. If you're in a house, you're basically invincible to almost every enemy ability, but there was a doorway, and Diablo was just right there and was able to basically kill 2 more of my council members, and that made me sad. But that's part of what I was talking about, how the house is so safe, it doesn't matter if Diablo's there, because it was just like he was at the perfect angle. If he was off angle a bit, that fire doesn't go into me, and then it really doesn't matter that he's alive. Even the ads that he spawned. And we're going to come back to that in just a little moment. Mephisto's almost dead. I think I'm going to have 3 council left alive by the end of it. I got lazy here because I already lost so many. I'm like, I don't think it really matters anymore. But the reason for going a Cleansing Merc as opposed to the Prayer Merc is basically for Mephisto and Bale. And that's because Lore Resist will come off quicker, so if you do really want to keep your council members alive, Lore Resist is a pain, and you could basically run off, and it wouldn't actually waste you that much time to let the CDR from Cleansing take the Lore Resist off, and you could play Bale very safely. Same concept with Mephisto. Your council members are going to want to go into melee range at some point. They're going to take poison damage, and when they take poison damage, they will not get their base monster regen, which is what really keeps them alive. Right? It actually is probably way better than Prayer, the life regen from Prayer that the Act 3 Cold Merc gives. So the Cleansing Merc, I do think there's an argument for him, but the Prayer Merc would just be overall better, and he's also really nice for melee mobs because he's going to give them life on hit. If you are going Act 3, or more specifically, if you're going DeseRev, and of course you're going Act 3, you're going to want to give him the Meditation Insight Rune Word on one of his maces, and that way you really won't have to worry about mana. And so basically you can go into a house and just spam Desecrate. And the reason why it is so safe is because the houses have very small entrances. And unless, like that one section earlier where you saw Diablo literally get lucky enough to just shoot it right into the doorway, you're basically invincible. And you have 2 choices at that point. You can stomp Diablo every once in a while, which I think is a fine idea. Also, you're going to want to get Lore Resist back on him, just because I think it would take too long. Unless you're really worried about your gear, then sure, just stay inside the house. But you can just stay inside the house the whole time, and then, cast Lore Resist whenever you choose. I just chose to stomp, Lore Resist, then go back. And he kind of gets a little far away. I'm going to switch houses. But this is basically why it's such a broken strat. The revives, you only need 1 to block the entrance, basically. And at that point, you're basically invincible. Diablo can't hurt you. He can't even get in if he wanted to. In fact, it's kind of funny because I go into the small house at the north, and Diablo, makes his way to the doorway slowly, but he still never gets in. Why? Because one of my revives is blocking the entrance. One of the other cute things about this battle is that if Diablo happens to bone prison your revive guarding the entrance, it effectively makes them tankier. So I had a lot of fun doing this fight. I wasn't particularly trying to do it as quickly as possible. I was partly just testing different things, like seeing how worth it is to try to kill the ads, and trust me, that is never worth it. Unless you're hardcore, very budget, you have Meditation Merc still alive, then I could definitely see it being viable to go far enough away from Diablo to kill some abs to have another safe area to fall back to. But if you don't have Meditation, you're going to go through your mana way too quickly. My gear sucks. You really want the Venom Rune Word. So what are the key items for this build? It's really just 2 things. Some source of Meditation, either Act 1 or Insight and Act 3 Merc, or I guess Emilio, but you're not going to keep him alive. And Venom Rune Word, just a Maul Rune. Even if you have less skills than me, you'll do more damage. In fact, I bet that 25 skills Desecrate with Venom does as much damage as 30 without. In fact, it probably does more, because Pierce is just that good for poison abilities. Anyway, guys, this is the best way to do budget Ubers. Skelly King out, GG.
Come play with us, Daniel.